Hello again, everyone. Edwin Lerner back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about the 12th house in astrology. Well, let me get started. First, I want to describe just, fundamentally what the 12th house is, what it represents. It's, obviously it's the 12th house going. If you go in a, the counterclockwise direction on your, on your chart wheel, it's the last house in your horoscope, and it represents, we could say, in some inhibitions, restrictions, limitations. It could show some hidden strengths and attributes that we have that we don't always feel comfortable divulging, to others. It can, it's things a lot of times what we do in seclusion and in solitude. And a lot of it is untapped, talent and abilities, I believe, as well, back to the hidden strengths thing. So anyway, let me give some examples. First, some planets, if they fall in someone's 12th house in a natal horoscope. Now, let's say that someone has Uranus in the 12th house. This could indicate, some ingenuity and some innovative prowess that the person may not have tapped into, and things that could be done in private. It could also, an area possibly, the ingenuity could be an area of weakness that the person, may have difficulty in expressing, or maybe a suppressed, side of themselves that is not shown readily to others. Also, the 12th house could represent an area in life where, we are reluctant to confront. If somebody, say, has Venus in the 12th house, for example, it may show some indication that there might be some dilemmas or problems in the love life that need to be addressed and confronted, and that the person, for whatever reason, may have procrastinated and put off, meeting this thing head on. So that's another thing. And back to, the inhibitions and, suppressed, repressed energy. Let's say if somebody has Mars in the 12th house, Mars, as we know, rules, could anger, sexual activity. This could indicate somebody that has some kind of repressed anger that has is difficulty in being released. And it could also show somebody that, might have some kind of, sexual inhibitions and, hang-ups as far as the, the sexual, side of the nature goes. Now, let's take another example. Saturn in the 12th house may have, possibly, a weak father image. And father might have dissipated early on in the person's life, either figuratively or literally speaking, or a combination. I have Saturn in the 12th house, and my father died when I was about 4 years old. And I grew up, the majority of my life without a father, because my mother never remarried. And even it could show, in the figurative sense as well, that the father might have been around physically for some people, but failed to play a dominant role in his or her life. And it could show Saturn can be connected with the business side of a person, and it might show some limitations, that the person might have as far as business acumen as well in that example. Now, another thing about the 12th house, we could look at, the sign on the cusp of the 12th house, and this can indicate, some limitations, as well in a side that is not readily expressed. Now, if somebody, say, has Sagittarius on the cusp of the 12th house, and especially if they have Capricorn rising, which is kind of, like the antithesis of Sag in a lot of ways, this could be a person that has difficulty in expressing their flippant, jocular, or jovial side, and that happy-go-lucky, side of the person. So it's always important to look at the sign that's on the cusp of the 12th house as well when you're delineating, horoscope and looking at the 12th house. Now, let's see if somebody has 3 or more planets in the 12th house. Obviously, this would be a very strong concentration. If you have a plethora of planets in the 12th house, the person can be very introverted, possibly maybe a little bit reclusive, very secretive. There can be a very strong emphasis on private matters. Could be a thing where solitude is that person's best friend in a lot of ways, very introspective, and a lot of matters are done privacy and behind the scenes. Now, I want to talk about some example with an intercepted. Well, first I want to talk about, let's say, if the 12th house is intercepted. Now let's give a hypothetical example. Now let's say somebody has Capricorn on the cusp of the 12th house, and they have Pisces on the cusp of the first. An intercepted sign would be Aquarius, because it would fall inside that house and it wouldn't be on the 12th or the first. It's basically an intercepted house is a sign that falls inside the house completely and is not on the 12th or first house cusp, or in any case an intercept doesn't have to be the 12th or first, could be the first or second or third, and on the adjacent houses you wouldn't find that house in it. It would be all 30 degrees of that sign would fall inside that house. Now let's take the 12th house intercepted. This could be something where let's say like back to my example, if we take Capricorn on the 12th, Pisces on the first, 12th house is intercepted in Aquarius. This could be somebody that might have some suppression in terms of the ingenuity, and maybe that utopian or unorthodox side of the person has not been tapped in fully and may have difficulty expressing it, because not only you have that sign intercepted, but if you falling in the 12th house and having that 12th house intercepted, obviously it's kind of a double whammy as far as that restriction might go in connection with that with that sign. Now let's say if somebody has let me give an example of a planet intercepted in the 12th house. Let's say somebody has Pluto intercepted in the 12th house in their natal horoscope. Now Pluto in the 12th house alone could indicate somebody that has little difficulty in the transforming and regeneration side of the person and reinventing themselves. There might be some difficulty, and if you have Pluto intercepted as well, that there's an indication that that's even going to be a little bit harder to be expressed, and the person might actually could possibly succumb to conditions that maybe are extraneous or on the outside, and it has nothing to do with that person, the ability to transform themselves or reinvent themselves on some level. They could be affected by things in their environment, for example, and they might go through changes unwittingly, might be beyond their control to some degree. So anyway, let me one of the last things I want to get with you on is now 12th house rulers. Now if you look at the ruling planet that's on the 12th house cusp, now in my horoscope I have Aries on the cusp of the 12th house. The ruling planet is Mars, and it's posited in the 3rd house. So it could show that I have a reservoir of maybe communication ability that is maybe shown in private, because where the ruler of the 12th is, a lot of times is where I believe you have that outlet maybe for that hidden strength, or it's going to be something that's connected with something you do in private. I do, a lot of my communication is done privately. I do, like the astrology. Metaphysical is connected with the 12th house. In astrology, a case could be made that it has some affiliation with the 12th house. So maybe that's part of the reason I like to do, like my YouTube videos that I do on astrology, and I like to communicate in matters connected with that. And so basically, look at your 12th house ruler and see what sign, what in this case, what planet and what house the sign falls in. And basically, it's kind of like in a way you're kind of amalgamating or combining the 12th with that other house, and it forms kind of a purpose. If somebody say had the 12 ruler of the 12 posited in their 6th house in their natal chart. It could be somebody that does work in private or seclusion, because you're combining the 12th house meaning along with the 6th house. Or it could be somebody that might be, as far as working goes, might have some kind of work restriction or debilitation, might preclude him or her from maybe working substantially, as another, example. And last but not least, if somebody has, a planet, a planet transiting their 12th house, obviously that could impact him or her at that time. If somebody, say, has, Saturn is traversing somebody's 12th house, it could be a time for that person to do a lot of introspection, a lot of looking within, and a lot of confronting his or her own, fears and maybe some hang-ups, the skeletons in the closet that the person might have deliberately been avoiding and procrastinating on as far as looking at for a period of time. And anyway, people, that will conclude this segment for the 12th house, and I have dedicated this to a loyal and steadfast YouTube follower, name I know is Faye S. And people, I want to let you know, I do have a couple other YouTube channels. Please tune into it if you can. One of them is called Edwin Learned, and that is my primary channel for my astrology videos. And another one is Zodiac Man. I should say, sorry, the other one is YouTube Analyst, and it's spelled like that. I have it in all lowercase. I don't know if it makes a difference. And I do my NFL, weekly prognostications on there and give my analysis on the football games. So anyway, that will conclude this segment, people, and until next time, stay well.